Alright folks, my name is Adam and I like to make tiny nerdy things, and today I'm going to pay tribute to one of the greatest cinematic masterpieces to ever grace television. Yes, today I'm going to make a Sharknado. But not just any Sharknado, it's 2022, so this Sharknado is going to have a built-in RGB music visualizer. And to do that, I'm going to use this. This is a Govee RGB light strip that I bought thinking it would help me increase my kill-death ratio and catapult me to the top of the Fortnite leaderboards. But then I remembered that I've never played Fortnite before, so instead it's just been sitting on my desk gathering dust, waiting for its moment to RGB shine. Now the first step in making a Sharknado is making a Nado, and that means I need a big sturdy length of wire that can hold not only the weight of the lights, but also the copious amount of sharks I intend to have flying around. To that end, I picked up a length of 5mm thick armature wire, which should be heavy duty enough to serve just that purpose. This will be the birth of a Sharknado, so it'll be originating from a patch of ocean that I'll build out of a disc of MDF that I've drilled a couple holes into to mount the wire and run the cables for the lighting. Then a daub of hot glue into the hole, and I can stick my wire in place. I'll reshape the wire to a more pleasing tornado shape, then I can start pulling the light strip through the pre-drilled holes. This would be a lot easier if the sticky surface wasn't exposed, but I actually did have this strip mounted behind my computer before realizing I'm not a 12-year-old boy who's fascinated by bright shining lights. Anyways, the next step in making my bright shining big boy Sharknado will be wrapping the LED strip around the armature wire. A bit of aluminium foil will help space the lights out, but it's otherwise just a case of coiling the strip upwards until I run out. I'll wrap the remainder of the strip back and forth on top so that I can make a little thundercloud later, then it's time to coat everything in silicone. Now I know a lot of people use these strips to make audio responsive thunderclouds on their ceilings, and I've used LED strips with cotton in lots of projects before, but these strips connect to my mains power, and I'm a little apprehensive about burning my house down. So my plan is to create a barrier between the exposed terminals and my future cotton ball tornado texture. The idea here is that because silicone is non-conductive, I should be able to coat the entire surface without affecting the lights while giving the cotton balls a temperature-neutral barrier to stick to later. I don't know if this is either incredibly clever or incredibly stupid, but both options cancel each other out, leaving me with just a run-of-the-mill, perfectly normal idea. Just to be safe though, probably don't do this. Otherwise, I've gone as far as I can with the Nado, so now it's time to make some sharks. Once I've got myself some shark-sized lumps of clay cut to size, I can start shaping them into shark-shaped shapes. I'll start by rolling my lump into an oblong cylinder, then smooshing it until I've got the makings of an underwater murder blimp. Then I can start shaving the sides until I've got a more streamlined shark shape. I'll chop an oversized mouth into the front of my murder tube, remove some of the excess from the middle of the mouth, then start refining the broader shark-related shapes. I really appreciate that 450 million years of evolution have led to the apex ocean predator being a fat tube with a big mouth and self-replenishing teeth. My pathetic monkey brain is concerned about the fact that I haven't been to the dentist in a while and one of my teeth feels a bit loose. Meanwhile, Bruce is just casually replacing his teeth upwards of 20,000 times during his lifetime. Speaking of teeth, to make Bruce's teeth, I'll take a little ball and then smoosh it flat. This then gets wrapped around a little metal tube so that I can cut the excess away, leaving me with two little clay bands. I'll then work my way across the edge of my bands, cutting diagonal lines in one direction before flipping it over and repeating the process in the other direction. Eventually I'm left with a full set of silacomorphic chompers. Then once they've been baked in the oven, I can pop them off the cylinder, separate the top and bottom halves, then chop them in half again so that I can jam them all up into Bruce's mouth. I'll poke a couple sneeze ports into the front of his face, cut some gills, then give him a nice spinal bend. Bruce is going to be flying around a Sharknado, so I want to make sure that he's got appropriately Sharknado-y movement. Then a quick bake to lock it all in place, and I can start adding the fins. Once my fins are finished, I'll give the body a quick alcohol brush to blend the seams together, then I can make them one last time, and Bruce is finished and ready to be added to the rest of my Sharknado shark pile. Before I get to the painting though, I need to prime my shark pile. Fortunately, I know a quick and easy method for batch priming. All you need is an empty container large enough to fit all your sharks. Then fill a small paint bottle with your primer of choice and toss that in. Attach the lid and shake the shit out of it. Assuming you've done it all correctly, after a few minutes of shaking, you can dump out your sharks and admire a perfect white prime job ready for painting. Just make sure you keep the paint bottle so you can reuse it next time. As for painting the sharks, nothing particularly out of the ordinary here. I'll paint the belly white and the top gray using the bristles on the brush to give me a pretty messy line between the two sections. Then I'll add some bluish gray tones to the top of the shark to give the skin a bit of variation and add some very light beige coloring around the mouth and fins. I'll paint the inside of the mouth with some reds and terracottas, then recoat the teeth with white, leaving the base flesh toned to look a little bit like gums. Finally, the eyes get a pitch black paint and I can start drilling holes. The holes will be where the sharks attach the tornado, and I've cut a couple lengths of wire to stick into each of said holes. Now while the sharks are mounted on the wires, I'm also going to take the opportunity to give them a quick gloss varnish so they've got a nice shiny surface. Then I can start mounting them on the tornado. Now I've chopped one shark in half who will be bursting out of the ocean, but the rest of them will get wrapped around the tornado, moving in the same direction as the rotation. Once I'm happy with the placement of my sharks, I'll pull them off the wire mounts, then lock the mounts in place with a little bit of hot glue. And with the last shark removed, it's finally time to attach to the tornado. As I mentioned before, I'm going to use cotton balls for my tornado since they're easy enough to unravel and they should attach to the tornado without much fuss. I've thinned some PVA glue to a brushable consistency so that I can easily brush it over the entire surface of the tornado, then I'll work my way from the bottom up, wrapping the cotton around the tornado stem. I want to make sure it's got a twisted twister look to it, so I'm going to make sure that the cotton is looping around and upwards in the same direction. Once my cotton has reached the top, I can start gluing individual balls into place to give the top a bit more of a fluffy, cloudy look, making sure that all the lighting and silicone is covered. Finally, I'll turn the lights on to make sure they still work and so that I can shift the cotton around and cover any of the exposed LEDs. Now the cotton looks great, but it's a bit too white for what should be a terrifying shark-filled tornado, so I'm going to give it a bit more of an ominous appearance by airbrushing the cotton with a series of grays, blues, and blacks. Now, a lot of people wonder how I managed to make these things with minimal planning, and this is a fine example of how I work. I spent roughly 15 minutes adding the darker color before deciding that I hated it and pulling all the cotton off to start again. Would a plan have saved me having to do all this? I don't know. After all, it was Mike Tyson who said, "I want to eat his children," or something about plans changing when you get metaphorically hit in the face by a poorly painted cotton tornado. I don't know. I didn't really have a plan when I started this sentence. Anyways, the point being, plans are for nerds and it's time to make the water. To make the base look like a deep and spooky ocean without having to pour any resin, I'll mix a little crystal clear silicone with isopropyl alcohol and blue and green ink to create some spicy blueberry jam, which I'll spread over the entire base. I'll stick my half shark in place while the silicone is still wet, then coat the lower part of the tornado with a very thin PVA and water mix. This will give it a bit of a shiny, watery appearance and should make it a lot easier to attach the water spouts that I'll add in the next step. To make the waves, I'm going to squirt some beads of clear silicone in spirals leading out from the center of the tornado. The darker blue of the bottom silicone should show through really nicely through the clear of the wavy sections, leaving with a great amount of depth for a little amount of work. After all, my goal in life is to see just how much can I accomplish with the least amount of effort. I'll use my fingers to blend the beads of silicone together with regular squirts of isopropyl alcohol to keep my fingers from sticking. By working in stages, I can build up the waves until they are tall and skinny and they look appropriately torn up by the tornado. I also want to make it look like the tornado is sucking water into its tooth-filled vortex of doom, so I'm going to run a few beads of silicone around the base following the same line as the cotton. Then I'll poke and prod it with my fingies until it looks a little less like a perfect bead of silicone and a bit more like a gout of torrential murder water. Finally, to top the water, I want to add lots of churned up foam, which I'll make by mixing silicone with lots of isopropyl alcohol and a big dump of simulated snow. This all gets mixed together and then applied to the tips of all the swells and the gouts of water. Finally, with the ocean looking proper terrifying, I can start reattaching the sharks. To blend my sharks into the tornado and create my Sharknado, I'm gonna make some lines of water beating off the tails and fins, as well as add some cotton waves wrapping around some of the sharks on top. Last but not least, I'll give the furthest tips of the waves and foamy, watery bits a touch of white highlights, then we are all finished here and on to the glamour shots. As always, a massive thank you to my wonderful patrons and a very special shout out to my newest patrons, Jeff Smexy Blum, Samantha Giles, Slithy, Finnabust, Mr. Jukes, Patrick Kennedy, Tony Wilsman, Andrew Turnwall, Most Fantastical, Weird Frost, Milkleg Scoop, Toe Jam Galore, Mary Me Laney, Daddy Daughter DIY, Votion, Aaron McSee, Miss Archivist, Ryan Laudick, Fluffy Panda, Venera Eddy, Xanakin Skyweaker, Laughable Genius, William Blomstrom, Andrew Renfro, and Brina Ray. You are the incredibly powerful winds that keep this improbable shark-filled tornado of a channel aloft. If you like this video, then don't forget to like that smash button and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more of the absolute okayest content on the internet. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Cheers.